Hey, hang on to this. Hello? Yes, I am Deadpool wearing a Deadpool hoodie. Can I not get cold? It's time to learn you something. Hey guys, back with another video, and today we'll be learning how to make Deadpool's utility belt. Let's get started.
So this belt was once again based off of the video game. It's been one of my favorite builds so far, and along the way I came up with a pretty easy method for taking it on and off, even around the big huge buckle. This belt is fully adjustable for your ever expanding waist, and attached to it are 4 holsters, 2 grenades, and 1 flashbang, but of course you could put whatever you want, whatever your heart desires. So I did go out and buy the 4 holsters and the 2 grenades, but as for the flashbang, I made that myself. I just bought a 3rd grenade, cut the top off and attached it to an empty pill bottle and spray painted the thing. Turned out pretty good. So I started out with the actual belt part, since that is what holds all of this together. The material that I actually use for this is the same stuff that they use for your backpack straps. I call it webbing. I think I'm right. If not, oh well. The belt consists of 3 different sized webbings, the smallest being 1 inch, the next one up being 1.5, and then the widest being 2 inches. The lengths, however, depend on your hips. To determine the length of your 2-inch webbing, what you'll want to do is measure around your hips or wherever you want the belt to sit, and then take 1 inch off of that and then cut there. As a completely optional step, I rounded off the edges, mainly because I thought it was going to look cool and I thought it was a good chance to show off my little arc reactor necklace. But in the end, you really don't even see it, unless the belt's off. Keep in mind that whenever you cut the webbing, they fray very easily. So what you want to do is burn the edges. You see me using this styrofoam cutter as a way to burn it, but later on I realized it's much easier to use a lighter. Just don't burn yourself, please. So we are going to cut the 1.5 inch webbing into 2-inch strips. We need 8 of those. And these are actually used to hold the small 1-inch webbing in place without actually completely pinning it down, so that you can still fully adjust the waist size, just in case you pack on a few pounds sitting around watching all my videos. If you've ever noticed in the game, these pieces are actually pretty evenly spaced out, except for the very back, that has a big gap. So what I did to sort of match that was I took some measuring tape, I placed it starting from the middle of the 2-inch webbing and down to one of the ends. And from the center, I measured out 2 inches and placed one of those pieces down. And then in between the rest of the pieces, I made sure they had 2 inches as well. Once those were all pinned down, I did the same thing to the other end, and then I sewed all of it together. For the length of our 1-inch webbing, I just took what we measured out for the big webbing and added about 12 inches to that and called it good. We will be attaching this to a side release buckle and an adjuster loop. The tricky part was the adjuster loop. But luckily you have me to show you how it's done. So let's take one end of our 1-inch strapping and feed that through the female end of our side release buckle. But you'll want to feed it through deep enough so that it's easy enough for you to sew together so it won't go anywhere. As for the other end of the strap, what we're going to do is take our strap adjuster loop and then feed it up one end of it and then down the other side. And we're going to scoot that all the way to the middle of the strap. And then we're going to feed it down the male end of the buckle and then bring that end back all the way over to the adjuster again. And then we're going to go a little backwards and then feed it up the same end we exited and then down the same end that we began with. And of the 4 of these straps that you see going in and out of the loop, we're going to sew the middle 2 together to hold it all in place. Now you should have a fully adjustable strap and it's ready to place inside the loopholes that we sewed onto the big webbing. And now we can move on to the belt buckle. For this buckle, all I use is a plastic bowl that I got from the dollar store, some craft foam, and the touch light. The second touch light that I got in that pack of 2 from the sword holster tutorial. So we can start by getting rid of one of those bowls and then measuring 1 inch from the rim of the bowl. And then we're going to extend that line all the way around, since this will be our cutting guide for when we take out our Dremel. And then from that line we'll measure another inch up and then extend that line all the way around again. And with the Dremel being my preferred cutting tool, I got that out and some safety glasses and then started cutting along the lines. And since these bowls are plastic, cutting them with the Dremel kind of melts them, so you'll want to clean up the edges a little bit. I used my hands to break these pieces off, but once they start getting hard, it scratches your thumb up. So if you have some pliers, use that instead. And then just repeat that for that second line that we drew. So now that we have 3 parts of a bowl, we'll only need the 2 pieces that we cut out. And if you flip one of those around and place it over the other, you should get the rim of our Deadpool buckle. Now the only difference between that and the finished product is that one has a pointy tip versus the rounded off edge that we are hoping to achieve. Now to make that happen, what you'll want to do is fill the inside of this with Bondo. And what this does is not only holds the 2 pieces together, but allows us to sand off that pointy mountain edge and make it a nice rounded corner for us. Now I used my Dremel to sand down the edges and round it off, but once I was done with that, I used a bunch of sandpaper to smooth it down to uniform smoothness. We want this sanded down well enough so that these bowls look as one, and so that the paint job looks dope. Now if you find that the very middle is uneven, you'll want to find the shortest part of that and then measure that line all the way around the inside so that we can sand it down upward and make it all even. Once you're done making that all straight, what you're going to do is take apart your touch light and then take that touch surface and then test the fit. Mine just so happened to accidentally fit perfectly, and I love when that happens. What we're going to do next is paint both the rim and the surface of the touch light. The rim is already sanded obviously, but the surface of the touch light is not. And it is very, very, very important to also sand this part down. I did not, and I definitely suffered for it. You need the sanding so that the paint sticks. But we're going to do a good layer of primer, and then we are going to do the rim metallic silver and then the surface of the touchlight red. With the black craft foam, you want to measure out a 4-inch circle and cut that out. And then on the white craft foam, you'll want to measure a 2.5-inch circle and then cut that out again. And then on both of these circles, we'll want to cut out an 1/8 of an inch strips down the center of each. So what you want to do is draw a center line and then mark 1/16 of an inch on each side and then cut each out. Next, what we are going to do is take our white half circles and glue them down the center of our black half circles. I use spray adhesives. I wouldn't say that this is the only option for gluing these down. I would just say that these worked out pretty well for me. Once those are dry, we're going to glue these to the surface of our touch light. Hopefully you sanded that down before you painted it, because it caused problems for me, and hopefully it won't do the same to you. But assuming that it doesn't, what you'll want to do is tape off where you want the edge of your black half circle to start on the surface of your touch mask, and then glue that on, starting from the center of the half circle, pushing outwards down the middle, and then spreading the edges out towards the edges. As you can see, the sides of it start creeping towards the middle, and that is the whole purpose of the blue line, because once it dries, we cut the excess off, making an actual straight line down the middle, rather than the half circles curving inwards. Ideally, once you're all done with that, you should be able to peel off the painter's tape, no problem, and then repeat the steps as necessary for the other side. That wasn't the case for me. I had to do some additional touch-up painting and redoing for the other side, and that sucked. Next, all you'll have to do is slide the rim of the belt buckle right over the surface of the touch light, and then we can continue on the back of the belt buckle. So now we need a way to attach the belt buckle to the belt. And to do this, we're going to take the back of our touch light, the part that contains the light, the wires, and the enclosure for the batteries. And what we're going to do is strip that down and take a Dremel and cut off all the stuff that's sticking out on the edges so that we can glue that onto the back of the touch light. And when we glue this on, we want to make sure that it's perfectly aligned with the front of the Deadpool buckle, so that when we attach to the belt buckle, it's facing the right way. When gluing these two parts together, you're going to want to rough off both edges, whether using your Dremel or just plain old sandpaper. You want to make sure it has a surface to grip to. Since I used Gorilla Glue to attach these two pieces, I had to make sure it was clamped down nice and tight, and I left it to dry for a long enough period of time. While that dries, what we're going to do next is take the battery cover and glue that onto the front of the female end of the side release buckle. You want to make sure to rough up the edges before we glue it together and make sure that's clamped down tightly and left to dry. As for our final step, all we have to do is add on all of our accessories and you are now an official owner of an awesome Deadpool utility belt. And one step closer, or possibly even being done with your Deadpool costume. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, hope you learned a lot. Leave me a thumbs up to let me know that I'm doing a good job and that I should keep going with my videos. Let me know in the comments below if you're gonna make one yourself. I do hope to see a lot more Deadpool utility belts in the cosplay world. Subscribe for my future videos, and don't forget to add me on social media. I love talking to you guys and I love to answer your questions, and sometimes it's just a lot easier for me to answer you back on other forms of social media, because sometimes I can't even reply to some of your comments, although I do want to. But for the bulk of questions that went unanswered, or the frequently asked ones, I'll do a video on frequently asked questions next. So until then, I will see you later.